Hello everyone, welcome back to Twin Talks Ballet. You may notice I have a guest here. This is my friend Hannah Bettis. I'm so grateful that you're on today's video and like 2 more videos after this. We are doing a little marathon today on this fine Saturday. We're going to be talking first about what it was like for Hannah in her journey towards becoming a professional dancer, because if you guys don't know about Hannah, she actually had quite the little career, like very quickly. So, funny story, I actually grew up watching Hannah's videos of her doing Prix de Lausanne and YGP, right? You did YGP.
Yeah.
And I just thought, wow, you're so talented. Never in a million years did I think we'd both end up being friends in Austin, Texas. But here we are.
Here we are. It's good.
So thank you so much for joining me and agreeing to share some of your story. Today we're going to talk really about kind of what it was like for Hannah to be perceived as so talented and on this fast track to success. Because I know for a lot of you guys that are watching, if you're anything like me, it's so easy for us in our journey to look at other people who seem to be winning these awards and just doing so well and think, wow, the grass is really greener for people like you, but I hate to even say people like you as if you're not even a human. So I really want us to just have an open discussion about what it was really like for Hannah, her highs and her lows, just so that we can all recognize, no matter what your fellow friends in ballet are like, what their talent is like, their physique for ballet, what their accomplishments are. We all struggle. We all have to work really hard to get where we want to go in ballet. And that's not something that changes despite what, level of talent you're given. So Hannah, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and your journey, kind of what were the highlights of where you came from?
Yeah, okay. So I started ballet when I was about 8, and then I was homeschooled, started doing it like a whole day program, everything like that when I was 12. And then I started competing. I won the gold medal at YGP 2 years in a row, and then got the second prize in audience choice at Prix de Lausanne. I did a bunch of other smaller competitions, international competitions too, and I ended up at the Royal Ballet School in London for 2 years before joining Boston Ballet when I was 18. So That's a little bit of background. And then when I got to Boston Ballet, I got to do all kinds of roles. I did a premiere as Aurora in Sleeping Beauty, worked with William Forsythe. I got to work with all kinds of different choreographers.
Did you do it in the middle?
No, I didn't do it in the middle. They're actually working on it in the middle right now.
I know.
Yeah.
I saw that.
It's the first time they've done it.
Jealous.
I know. It's really, really cool.
That's the dream ballet. Hey, you guys, I just wanted to quickly pop into this video interview, which I really hope you're enjoying, to thank the sponsor of today's video, which is, again, so generously sponsored by BalletOK.com, who sells Zerly tights. And by the way, if you've been watching my recent videos and you've seen many of my sponsored clips for BalletOK.com, here's something I haven't mentioned yet, which is that if you buy Zerly tights through BalletOK.com, you can actually participate in their tights recycling program. So what that means is when you have enjoyed your Zerly tights to the maximum and they are kind of past their time, all you have to do is send back your tights to the BalletOK.com headquarters, and they are going to provide you a discount on a new pair. So you get to repurpose those old tights and reduce waste, which I hope you are interested in doing just like I am. But you're also going to get a new pair at a lower price. So in addition to getting a lower price when you turn in your old tights, I have a special discount code for all of you viewers out there. So if you want to click the link down below, I actually have several links, not only the link to where you could buy the tights, I have a discount code for you for $10 off your order. And I also have, if you want to learn more about Zerly tights, I have a review video that I made last year that goes very in depth to everything you need to know about Zerly tights. Thank you again, BalletOK.com, for sponsoring this video. And let's get back into the interview. I'm so excited to ask you a bit more, a few more questions about really what it was like for you and even what you struggled with, what came naturally to you. At what point in your journey did you really feel like, maybe I have some talent, or maybe I'm a little bit different than my peers. And when you answer that, also, I'd love to know more of like, how did you feel similar to your peers and different?
I had an idea that I was talented when I first started because after my first dance class, I had the teachers pull my mom aside and be like, she has a ton of potential. Obviously, I couldn't actually dance yet, but
But potential was just sitting there.
Yeah, potential was just sitting there, and so they immediately,
Untapped.
yeah. And so basically, they like wanted me to enroll full time and wanted me to the following year to be put on the team so that I could do more classes, so I could start to actually like learn how to dance.
Yeah.
So that was when I was 8, and yeah, I started dance because my best friend danced, and I kind of just was like, she's always dancing, so I was like, I never had time with her, so I wanted to go to dance class, and I'm going to dance class with her, and then within the year, I was like 3 levels above her. So it didn't work out the way I wanted it to.
You did not get more time with her.
I did not get more time with her, but that's kind of how. So I had like an awareness from when I first started, but it wasn't something that I took very serious or what I actually wanted to do. I remember always thinking in the back of my head, like, oh, this is just a hobby, just a hobby.
Yeah.
Even until I was like 11, I remember thinking like, oh, I'm going to pull out of everything.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to, and by the time I'm in high school, I won't be dancing anymore.
Yeah. You'll be done with this after school riffraff.
Yeah. And then what ended up happening is when I was 12, I got pulled out of school, started homeschooling and dancing like full time. But it was funny just because I think I always had an awareness that I was talented, but I don't think I was aware of what that really like meant or what it looked like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how did your peers start to treat you, especially when you got into environments where everyone was kind of taking dance more seriously?
Yeah.
What was that like?
I think because for me, since it was something that was more lighthearted in the beginning, obviously I got more serious the more I did it. But I know it did irritate people. I mean, it wasn't necessarily easy for me socially in those settings because I think that it was something that was irritating to other dancers, and they made it very clear that they weren't the happiest with my lighthearted attitude about it. But yeah. What else was the question? I forgot what else you asked.
We'll just flow with it.
Okay.
Okay, so obviously you were noticing some of your peers, maybe they were jealous or they were just frustrated because I imagine as they were trying so hard to make dance work for them, again, we all have this tendency to look at others and think, oh, why is it so much easier for them? Almost to justify our own frustration of kind of easing, the pain of not getting to where you want to go. Sometimes we can tell ourselves like, oh, well, it's easier for them. I have a harder time naturally. Yeah. Almost to like take responsibility off of yourself to try. Yeah. And so how did you cope with that? Or really a better question is, what did you wish for your social relationships? Maybe what did you want them to know about you?
I think that like as I did become more serious about it, so like between like the ages of 12 and 14 when I was really like starting to be like, okay, this is something that I want to do for my profession, this is something I'm serious about, it was hard for the people that I was around at that time to like forgive my lightheartedness before and then get that like switch so that they would start taking like me more serious, because I think that was a large misconception too, is that like when I did start working really hard and when I did start to want it, it was something that I struggled with trying to like mend those relationships. So I was like, no, this is something I want people to be like, you still don't want it at all. And I'd be like, no, but I do now. Like I changed my mind. Yeah. So then it was kind of that I think was really, I struggled with socially, like with my own peers.
So what were some of the challenges that you personally faced in your training and then your career?
I mean, I definitely went through like a season of humbling from being told, because when you're young and you have talent, and now being a teacher, like teaching dance, I see it more. Yeah. Like it's easy to tell a young kid that they have potential and that they have talent. And then as they start to get older and mature, they have to get better. But if they don't, then they kind of get taken into the season of like being humbled because you're like, it's still, you have to work hard. Like dance isn't easy for anyone, no matter how talented.
Take that in, people. It is hard for everyone.
For everyone.
Like there's always going to be something that comes easier to even someone who doesn't feel like they're that talented.
Yeah.
Maybe you have a strong body, but you're not that flexible. Celebrate that you have a strong body. If you're really flexible, a lot of us look at that and we're like, oh, you're so talented. Things are so easy for you, but maybe you struggle with injuries.
Yeah. Like I struggled a lot with injuries and even just like strengthening. Like strengthening for me was the hardest thing. Like I could flail around all day long, but when it came to like holding a position and moving quickly, it was the hardest thing. I really struggled with, especially like even when I was full adult and I was in Boston Ballet, doing balance sheet work was really hard for me because I was like, those quick twitch muscles like did not want to work. I had to work really hard to get them.
Yeah, that is really hard.
Yeah. So personally, I struggled with moving quickly, strengthening. I struggled a lot with my body because I'm 5'3".
Yeah.
And I mean, my family, all the women in my family have got like nice, small, curvy bodies. And for ballet, that's obviously not like the ideal or like the aesthetic. So I think that was something that I struggled with a lot, is to like see the people around me who had a much like more natural physique than I did. Like I might have had, people always said like I had the legs and the feet, but at the same time, so like I had the leg line, but I always was a little bit heavier. Like I always had boobs, I always had a butt, I always had that like more shapely figure.
And I'm sure it was so difficult in those moments to even feel like the offense of people saying, oh, your legs and feet.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure just like so many other dancers who don't feel like they have those legs and feet, but maybe they're really thin and they take pride in that. They're also, it's easy for all of us to look at our bodies and to see what's wrong.
Yeah.
And that does not change no matter what shape you have.
It literally doesn't matter.
Super, like perfect ballerina type people.
Yep.
And they're still so critical of themselves.
Yeah.
And so I love getting to talk more about the inner world that we all share if we don't intentionally try to shift our mindset. Because I'm sure you, like we were just talking about, had insecurities and struggles, or that negative self-talk, or even the tendency to look at other people and think like, oh, if only I could be like them. Yeah. Speaking of that comparison, what were some qualities you saw in other dancers that you, or even opportunities that you wished you had? Yeah.
I mean, what I always saw in other dancers that I would like, would always wish I was better with was turnout. Like I know I always was really flexible and like I had flat turnout, but like I could not sustain my turnout for the life of me. Like something about getting the like my hamstring and my external rotators to work just was really hard. And so I think that I always thought people who were like turned out and naturally turned out had it easier. And then I was fully convinced myself that I was never going to be turned out because my hips were too narrow, which doesn't.
Oh, so it became like a mindset
thing. It became a mindset thing, 100%. Like I was like, oh, I'll just never be able to hold my turnout because I mean that girl just has like better, wider hips than I do. So they're like thigh bone, their femur can sit better in their hip and they can turn out and sustain it. I'll just never be that way.
I did that too. Yeah. Like, oh, I just won't be flexible.
And it's just not true. It's just not true.
So not true. And it was just such a mental block I created for myself in order to justify frustration that I felt.
Yep.
We all experience this, people. Yeah. What were some of the benefits and the dark sides of having kind of what many people consider to be like a fast track in your career?
I think some of the benefits of it were that I was able to travel around the world. I was able to like experience and go to all these different places and cultures. And it was like a really beautiful opportunity that ballet kind of opened those doors for me. But I think like a lot of the dark sides that go with it, there's a lot of pressure on me all the time to perform. Yeah. I had a lot of stress. I mean, like, especially once I started winning competitions, it became this thing, like if I didn't win the competition, like I'd be failing or I would be taking a step back or I wasn't Hannah Bettis anymore. Like it was...
Oh my goodness, yeah, that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it became like this, there was just a lot of pressure. And I think that it was outward pressure, but at the same time, I think a lot of it I put on myself. Like, I don't think anyone was really looking at me, like, expecting me to win all this stuff. Yeah. Even if there was, like, a handful of people who were, it wasn't end all be all, but in my head it was. So yeah, I
That
think that
is
was
super crucial to point out because I think so many dancers who aren't getting like the full scholarship or the lead roles or being like the one dancer who's chosen to get a contract. Um, it's so easy to look at the dancers who do have that and only see all of the benefits you think would come from those blessings, you know?
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if you've never experienced a lead role, for instance, that like fresh enjoyment and like boost of confidence you get only lasts so long until you're like, oh, I have to deliver. I don't know if you've experienced being in the wings for a lead role and then just looking at one of the core girls and being like, I wish I was you right now because this is so stressful.
Yeah, actually, like I experienced that because my first few years in Boston, like I just did core work. That was like all I did. So I remember always like wanting to get soloist parts and wanting to do the principal roles and being like, I worked my whole like childhood and I was always on stage by myself. I was always doing everything by myself. And it took me a second to readjust to become a part of like the greater picture. And then once I did, when in my third season, I started getting more soloist roles, more principal parts. I started to realize like the pressure and stress that actually came with that I would never have been able to do without my first 2 years in the core. And even if when I was in those years, I thought like, oh, I can do anything. Once I was there, I was like, oh, I absolutely was not prepared for this.
And there's so much that comes with it.
So much that comes with it.
And a lot of pressure too.
And then especially like when I did my premiere as Aurora, like that was one of the most stressful things I've ever done in my life. Like I don't remember actually enjoying the process at all. And that's something that like a lot of girls like want to eventually do is these like huge principal roles, but like you're literally on stage dancing for 3 hours straight. And it is
until like 10 o'clock at night.
After
a day of dancing.
And so it is like, I've never been so exhausted in my life. Like it was not for me personally. I mean, the process in the studio, it was like amazing to work with the people I got to work with and all that. I'm like super grateful for it. But at the end of the day, like it was hard. Like it wasn't this, I mean, it felt like this moment of like overcoming something great, and it's like that moment of relief at the end of it. But I think that while I was in it, it was not what I expected it to be.
I think that's such a lesson for all of us to enjoy the process and to delight really in whatever level of, I guess, just the ability to dance that you have right now. Because it's not necessarily the case that when you get better roles or a better contract or whatever it is, or you get into a better training program, that all of a sudden automatically you're going to enjoy yourself more. There is more responsibility that comes with advancement. And so I'd say delight in whatever part of your journey you're in right now, because you can't really expect that next level of achievement to save you from frustration you have now. In fact, whatever insecurities you might have or frustrations you might have, they're just going to be put on display when you get more responsibility.
It is. And dance is so transparent. Like, so transparent. You can't hide anywhere.
Nowhere.
So you can really see all that stuff in the studio on stage and like what people are struggling with and what's going on. Like,
totally.
Yeah. It's so much more important just to enjoy the moment. Like there's actually, I think if I could go back, I would have enjoyed my time in the core a lot more knowing the things I do now. Like I actually like those years were the most formative and like the most important and just like, without those, it made me respect the process. Which before I think I didn't. I always thought it was about the goal at the end. Like I'm doing this because I know that this will happen. But that's not the point.
I think in ballet we can get into this mindset of like, when I get this role, and then when I'm finally on stage, then I will enjoy it. It's like we put our enjoyment out into a time in the future. And then you realize when your career is over in your 20s, oh man, I was still waiting. And now I can't go fulfill that. Which makes us appreciate what we have now a lot more.
100%. It's that whole hope deferred makes the heart sick. It's
totally
so true. Like, don't defer that hope.
Don't do it.
I'm hoping today. Live in the moment.
How has your definition of success evolved over time?
Okay.
The question.
Yes. I think my definition of success has evolved over time and just that I don't think success is accomplishments and achieving things. I think success is walking in your purpose. Yeah.
Amen. I love that.
It is, and that's the thing is that like, as great as my career was, and as much as I do love dance, I feel much more successful now away from it than I did when I was in it.
That's
and
incredible.
I'm not necessarily getting to do this role or receiving this award or anything. I'm just going to the studio every day and teaching little kids, and that is so much more meaningful and purposeful, and just like something that I personally enjoy a lot more.
That's really inspirational, because I think many of us, until you achieve something that you think is going to bring you significance, until you really do that and realize it doesn't actually give you lasting significance, you're kind of going to just be chasing that thing, and maybe just for yourself, but eventually to live for something that is greater than yourself. So that's what really brings you a lot more joy and fulfillment in the process. Instead of kind of deferring that gratification to like, oh, when I win that prize or when I get that principal role. And so I love that Jim Carrey quote. He said like, I wish that everyone could get everything they ever wanted so they could realize it's not enough. Something like that.
That's a good quote.
You know, I do think it's great for people to kind of see what their desires are made of. And so, it's like, it's a really good lesson for all of us. I love that.
Thanks.
Walk in your purpose. Well, all right. I'm going to wrap this one up here, but we have 2 more conversations we're about to film. Thank you so much, Hannah, for just sharing your insights and your story. I know it's really going to impact some people who are watching.
I'm excited.
Thank you. All right. Bye, guys.